Hello everybody and welcome to Rest and Reason. I'm RP the Red Panda and today we're going to be looking at viticulture. Now, viticulture falls into my fixer-upper category and we'll get into exactly why it's a fixer-upper in a bit, but first let's go over the game feel and the main mechanic. So, the game feel of viticulture is that you are the head of a winery. And as the head of a winery, you can do it two different ways. You can either relax, chill, just have fun farming the grapes and making wine with your family. Or you can be super duper stressed and thoughtful and think through every little action to make the absolute most money that you can possibly make with your winery. The main mechanic of this game actually accentuates that theme really well. And the main mechanic is worker placement. And I can't believe it took this long for me to get to a worker placement game on my channel because it is one of the most popular, most widespread parts of the board gaming industry. Worker placement works as follows. You start the game with a certain number of workers. In this game, it's 3. You take those workers on your turn, you put them out, and when you put them out, you get some sort of a reward, in this case, a green card. You take the green card, and now it is yours. All right, so that is literally exactly how every single worker placement I have basically ever played works, with maybe very tiny changes. And the reason why it's such a popular system is that for strategic people, this is horrible. It causes so much mind because you've only got 2 left now and you only got 1 thing and you want to do 407 things. So now you have to go, okay, where am I going to put this guy and where am I going to put this guy? How am I going to make the most out of these 3 people I have? And for a person who's just chilling out and having fun, they only have a certain number of things they have to do. They can put stuff down, and no matter where they put it, they're going to get something. Even if they didn't need it, they get something. Cool. For free. Awesome. Now it's theirs. Now they have stuff. Everybody loves stuff. So, why is this particular game a fixer-upper with such great foundations as a main mechanic that matches a theme as well as this one does? Well, the biggest reason is because of its cards. Its card system in the original game is very, very random. So let's go ahead and look at the first type of card, which is the grape card. In the original game, the grape card was completely random. You mixed all of them together, and some of them required you to do nothing before you planted them. Some of them required you to do tons of stuff. You had to get tons of money, then you had to go build things, and then you could finally plant them. And the problem was those were all mixed up into one deck, and then you randomly drew from that deck. And that meant that, honestly, there was almost no strategy to it. Because if you went in going, I'm going to try to get those cards that take nothing, I just can plant them right away, you might not get any of them. You might not be lucky enough to get a single one the entire game. Or you might go in saying, I'm going to build a bunch of great buildings so I can get really great grapes. But then the whole game, you get ones that require no buildings and aren't very good. In my changes, I make it both more strategic and more thematic. And I do that by putting the green cards into 4 stacks. 1, which has no buildings. 2, with 1 building each. And a 3rd with both the buildings. Now, this makes it so that you can choose strategically what you want to aim for in your winery. And thematically, this makes a lot of sense thematically because if you go up to a grape seed seller, he's not going to be like, here, have a bag of grape seeds, son. Oh, thanks, sir. You walk home and then you pour them out and go, oh, that's what I got. That's not how it works. You'd go to the grape seed guy and you'd be like, hey, I want to get some low-level grapes. What kind of grape seed do you have for some low-level grapes? And he'd say, oh, yeah, I got some of those. It's this one. And if you wanted better grapes, you could be like, I want the best grapes you have. What are the best grapes you have? And he says, oh, these are the best ones I've got here in the store today. And you'd get to choose what types of grapes you wanted. It's just thematically sensible, and it makes it easier for new players and more strategic for players who want to be more strategic. The other card that worked very similarly was the order cards. So let's go ahead and look at the order cards. They're right here. They're the purple cards. Now, in the original game, the order cards were exactly like the grape cards. They had really easy ones that required very little grapes and very little work to get to them. And then they had really, really, really difficult ones that required you to build a bunch of buildings, do a bunch of stuff to finally be able to do them. And they were all mixed up into a random deck, and you just randomly took them off the top. You never knew what you were getting. And again, it made it feel like sometimes you'd be like, I want to just go for some nice, easy orders. You couldn't. You never got any. Or you were like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the best wine possible. And then you just get bad orders the whole time. Really easy, simple orders. And you have to waste really great wine on really stupid orders. And it didn't make thematic sense. So I changed it to be very similar to what I did with the grapes. I separated them into 3 categories instead of 4. One with 2 points, one with 4 and also 3 points, and one with 6 and also 5 points. Now, this makes it so that you can put these 2 strategies together. You can do the simplest grapes to get the simplest wine. And you can do that quickly and maybe make a lot of money really quick because you're selling cheap wine. Or maybe you want to be more famous for being a little bit better at wine. So you do medium grapes for medium stuff, like these 2. Or maybe you want to be the finest winemaker in the entire world. So instead, you do this one for 6 points, and it might take you a little bit longer, but hey, it was worth it to be able to say you made the best wine. So it makes it more strategic. It also makes it more thematic. Yet again, you wouldn't go down, be like, hey, somebody give me a contract. Somebody throws a contract at you. You run home, and then you're like, honey, this contract's for wine we don't even have or don't even have the grapes for. That's not how it would work. You'd go down to the docks and you'd be like, hey, Joe, what kind of contracts do you guys have today? What do people want for wine? And Joe goes, well, I've got a buyer in Milan and he really wants some really fine wine, but I also have somebody over in Paris. He just wants whatever wine he can get. It doesn't matter how nice it is. Oh, okay, I'll take the not so nice one. I've got some really simple grapes that will go great for that guy. It's strategic and it's fun because you get to make a story about your winery. What kind of winery is your winery? The other cards that were imbalanced were the 2 types of visitors. You have the yellow visitors and the blue visitors. Now, the yellow and blue visitors worked exactly the same. You take a random card, and then you can use their special power, which represents you having them as a contact or you recruiting them into your winery. And you get to use that special power, and then it's gone. And I saw this happen so many times where different people in the game just got lucky. And nobody felt real super clever when they got lucky. It was just a matter of, wow, I was really lucky to get this card. Oh, you were really unlucky to get that card. In my version, I do the following. I make it so you can choose from 2 face-up ones or from the deck. This thematically represents that, let's say, 3 visitors visit your winery. 2 of them you recognize immediately. You're like, that's that kind of a person, or that person is somebody famous. And I really want to get this stonemason because I need to get some good buildings done and I know he can help me. Or I want this importer because I want to import some really good stuff. Either way, you get to choose which one you want to talk to. You only have so much time. They're going to leave the winery. So you got to go talk to which one you want to talk to. And they're going to move on to another winery. Or you can choose some random person that you don't recognize, who's a mystery. Who knows what you could get? Oh, this person allows you to put tons of grapes in your thing, and when you put those grapes in, you actually get points for doing it. Wow, that's a really cool card. But maybe you didn't want to try for that. Maybe you didn't want the random chance. It's all up to you. You get to decide what strategy you're going to do. And that's what my changes focus on, is making it so that you, the player, choose what strategy you're going to do. Now, with all of that said, that gives a heavy disclaimer. If you want a game that's constantly going to be challenging you to randomly change your strategy, go ahead and keep it the way it is. This game might actually straight up be good for you. But for me and most beginners and most people who I think really would enjoy the strategy of this game, I think it's just going to be frustrating. And so I would recommend doing these changes. I would also recommend 2 more changes that are very, very small. First of all, in the original game, you get 1 Papa and 1 Mama card. These are your starting cards that give you random bonuses at the beginning of the game. Starting with only 1 of each means you're stuck with whatever random thing you got, and they might have nothing to do with each other. My change says that each person is going to get 3 of each of them. They then get to choose which one they want of each one. So they can look at their 3 mamas and choose a mama, discard the other 2. Look at their 3 papas, choose 1, discard the other 2. This makes it so that you can strategize, put those 2 together, or maybe you choose ones that don't really fit together, but that's okay because you need them to work to make your thing better at everything. So it's just a small change that makes the game more fun and more strategic. Another small change I would make, and this is purely cosmetic, it was something that one of my friends at a board game convention, his name was James, super nice guy, and he came up with this really clever idea. Normally, you can only harvest 1 time from a grape. So in this case, you could harvest this grape to put 1 of these on here for a grape worth 3. The problem is you then can't do it again from here. But there's no way for you to know if you've done that or not yet. So James came up with this idea. At the end of every year, or every time that you made one of these, you would put one of these symbols on if there wasn't one already on there. Then, whenever you harvested, you'd take it off. And then at the end of the year, this would get refilled. It made it so you always knew where you had or hadn't harvested. And it was great. And it also feels so thematic. You feel like you're taking these little, they feel kind of like a grape. You're taking the grape off the vine and putting it in the vat, and then you're moving it from the vat to the winery. It just feels so good and so thematic, and it helps you remember what you've already done and haven't done. So originally, I would give this game a 3.75 out of 5. And the reason I give it such a low score and a bronze recliner is because it felt so random. And there are games that feel less random and more synergized originally than this one did. However, it did have a lot of strong suits. So even the original game without my changes, I would say if you love worker placement games, this is one you probably would enjoy. But with my changes, I would up this to a 4.3 out of 5, which is a silver recliner, which means that I would give this a general recommendation. I would say that with my changes, this game would please just about anybody who says, wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. I know exactly who I would play this game with. If that's you, I say go buy this game. You'll have a lot of fun. You'll enjoy it. It will be worth your money. You wouldn't even need to print out anything to do my changes. All you would have to do is click on the link in my description and look at the small rule changes. And from there, the game does it all itself. I would love to hear, if you've played Viticulture, do you agree with me that these are things that weren't very good? Or do you think that this is actually something that you loved about the game, that you had to constantly do random stuff because of random things happening to you and react? Was that something you loved about it? And if you haven't played this game, what's a game that you've maybe played that's like this, that you think maybe I should try, or maybe that I should do a fixer-upper or other episode on in the future? I'd love to hear from all of you down in the comments. And please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, so that you can become one of my valuable visitors to my winery, and I can brag about how amazing it was to have you at my winery. And as always, thank you so much for joining us today on Rest and Reason.